All right, well, let me ask you this big picture with the NFL. It seems to me that from about 2015 to a few years ago, it was very much a offense dominated league, and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and those guys with their motion and shifts were maybe one step ahead of defenses. But now it seems like both teams in the Super Bowl this year were defensive teams. The last 3 years, the team that's won it has had an elite all-time defense. It seems like maybe defenses have caught up and surpassed offenses right now, and that defenses are a little bit more cutting edge. Do you see it that way? And if so, what do you make of this trend?
Okay, Grant. Now, here's the thing. Offensively, you spread the field.
Mhm.
Okay. So now it's become an athlete game.
Mhm.
So the defense have gone out, and you're to match up now. They're bringing more athletes onto the field. They're bringing more speed on the field. Okay. Now, here's the other thing. You go to empty sets, you're in the shotgun and all that. You got five offensive linemen, some of whom weigh 330, 320, some weigh. So then the defense says, well, they got these huge pachyderms playing in the offensive line, big tackles. Well, how do I beat size? With speed. So now
Yeah.
I get these great pass rushers who are blistering off the edge, who run, they're 6'3, 6'4, they're 245, they're 250, they run 4'5, they run 4'4'8, now they run 4'6. They are like what used to be linebackers now are playing on the edge as pass rushers. In fact, some of
Mhm.
them are linebackers who on third down or on nickel and dime situations become the edge pass rushers. They are more adept with their speed than what an offensive tackle can do to pass protect against them. But see, when you're spread and you're empty, you don't have that extra policeman in the pocket to be able to help those tackles. Or I can create one-on-ones with pre-snap looks that force your offensive lineman to be singled up and then even pull out at the snap, give you a show dog look with 6 up or 7 up. I've isolated your offensive lineman. You can't double anybody in protection purposes because your head's on a swivel and you now I'm going to run twists and stunts and games and 2-man games and 3-man games. I'm going to be picking your offensive lineman, running loopers around free right up into the face of the quarterback. So now by opening up your offense, you've actually created more problems for you in terms of how to protect for your quarterback. And then your run game is not even existent anymore, other than the quarterback on having to scramble if I'm in empty personnel. So you've taken away a lot of concerns that the defense normally would have because you've spread out the field so much. You strung out your troops across the battlefront so thin, and you no longer have a second level of offense.
What about this though? I mean, it seems to me that Shanahan and McVay's offenses are much more condensed. And as we've been talking about, they haven't really evolved much. McVay has, but Shanahan hasn't really evolved much over the last 10 years. And yet, his coaches, McVay's coaches, I mean, it seems like at least half the teams in the league, the Raiders just hired Clint Kubiak. At least half the teams in the league run this system or a version of it. Is there something to the fact that the NFL offensive schemes have become so homogenized and haven't really evolved much in the last 4 or 5 years, while defenses um, have been studying tirelessly to defeat it?
That's true. Defenses have caught up. The thing about it is, when you bring the other problem that's a problem for offensive perspective is that when I go to empty sets or 11 personnel or 4 wideouts and then empty formations and all that, now I allow the defense to bring in all of these defensive backs and coverage people. And now I'm getting a multitude of combination looks from secondary coverages, which are creating some initial problems for quarterbacks as to where they're going to go with the ball. So I can now double more guys. I'm not just playing one robber anymore on defense with a basic vanilla sub defensive package. I've got a bracket on a guy in the slot over here. I got a high and low on a trap cover corner on the far side over there. Now your quarterback is seeing different looks. One side of the field has a different look than the right side of the field. So where the quarterback starts, he better finish on that side, because by the time he has to cross the field, which is that's trouble in the first place, he's got a whole different look over there in terms of a scheme than from what he saw when he looked at the first place on the left side, or vice versa on the right side.
I agree. And it seems like the whole Phillip Rivers thing this year sort of exposed how while there's still good quarterbacks in the NFL, they don't really play the position the way they used to 10, 15 years ago, where like the best of the best were in complete control before the play, at the line of scrimmage. I mean, you don't really see that much anymore. It seems like quarterback play in general might not be as good as it was 10 years ago. And then there's the fact that these quarterbacks are paid so much money. And the teams that are spending $60 million a year on quarterbacks can't have great defenses.
Well, the other thing too, Grant, is you've got so much substitution offensively now. Does the quarterback ever really get a feel for the game? Because the same players are never on the field for consecutive snaps. So
yeah, Peyton didn't have a bunch of constant substitutions. Peyton Manning.
No, and you didn't have a lot of crazy motions and shifts and all that stuff, so that the defense became more of a static look, where the quarterback can look at him and he can see where they are and get a feel for them. I've got the same guys on the field. Then they started to look, well, hey, Peyton would sit there and call out a play and then give a signal to a receiver that he wanted a certain route. And they could do that because they were at the line of scrimmage and they had all that time in which to operate. And then they could use dummy cadences. And then if the defense stemmed, he had time on the play clock to be able to make an adjustment. And, you know, I tell you, I looked at that Super Bowl game the other day and watched it from New England's perspective. Josh McDaniels, who was voted the assistant offensive coach or assistant coach of the year in the NFL, wow. And he got schooled. He did not make any adjustments, but this was the same guy a couple of years ago when they were playing the Rams in the Super Bowl. He threw the game plan aside. They went through 3 quarters with no touchdowns in that ball game against the Rams, correct? And all of a sudden, they had a fourth quarter where McDaniels went to 22 personnel, and the Rams 20 matchup with 22 personnel wasn't as good as the 22 personnel was for the Patriots, and they ended up winning the ball game, throwing some option routes to a running back in the slot, and the Rams didn't have a guy who could cover. But Sunday, where was Josh McDaniels' offensive guru? No chips for the left tackle, who gave up 14 pressures in the game, and it was like and then
seems like he's not as smart when he doesn't have Brady and Belichick around.
Also, there was no side adjust against all the blitzes, which Seattle brought. I saw receivers, the slot corner's coming. No one's assigned to him. He's free blitzer, and the slot receiver just jogs down the field like, I don't have to be hot. I don't need to look for the ball. And there was no one on offense to account for it. And then the other thing I noticed, they didn't vary their cadence. They went on a silent cadence the whole ball game. And Seattle was able to time it up, and they were hitting those blitzes with the secondary guys coming from 7 and 8 yards at a run, and bam, the ball's up. And here comes a couple of times they had 2 secondary blitzers coming from one side in their dime package, and they were getting to the quarterback, and they had 6 sacks, pressures, and all that.
Well,
so
look,
the
it seems to me that the best
defense have taken away a lot of what the offense can do. Because number one, the offense has to be able to, the passing game starts with protection first. Okay.
Yep. It just seems to me that, go ahead.
No, that was evident on Sunday. And that's something about, it goes back to my point about, Purdy and giving him a clean pocket. All the greatest pass concepts in the world. I don't need 5 guys out in a pattern to have a sophisticated, successful pass offense. Give me 3 guys to a side. Let me run combinations with those 3 guys, whether it's a wide receiver, a tight end, and a running back, or 2 wide receivers and a running back. Whatever kind of package I want, play action or not. But give him some quick releases and some quick throws as well, so he doesn't have to stand back there all day waiting for receivers to get down the field running routes that are beyond the depth with which their protection can hold up.
It just seems interesting to me that McDaniels just won the assistant coach of the year, and Shanahan was in the running for head coach of the year, and they're sort of considered the best that offense has to offer in the world, of NFL scheme world, and yet they got absolutely schooled, both of them, by Mike Macdonald. It seems like if anyone is cutting edge in the NFL, it's that guy, that defense, and I would be wanting to, if I were building a team, I'd want a defensive coach in 2026, preferably someone who knows Mike Macdonald.
Well, the other
You know
thing
how
is,
everyone was hiring the McVay's friends? I want McDonald's friend.
yeah, you know, bring the guy in for an interview, put him on the whiteboard. Al was notorious for doing that for years. He would bring in guys and he'd say, yeah, you know, I'm not going to hire the guy, but I want to pick his brain. I want to hear what he has to say. I want him to give me their scouting report of my ball club and what they see as our strengths and weaknesses and how
Smart.
they defend us and why they defend us that way. And then they want to know, I would say, I want to know what they would do to attack themselves.
Yeah.
So
all right.
If Macdonald was the offensive coordinator against Macdonald, the defensive coordinator, how would the offensive coordinator Macdonald attack the defensive coordinator Macdonald?
Yeah. There's got to be a better way than just running 40 times.